Hi, my name is Anuska Taylor and I'm a certified vocal instructor, and welcome to this video series for speakers. I'm going to look at 5 things that can make speakers sound insecure or unsure of themselves. So in today's video, we're going to look at volume, and this could be that you perhaps speak too loud or you speak too quietly. Now, we've all been on the receiving end of this. I'm sure that you're in a meeting or a presentation and the person presenting is almost talking to you like you're right next to them, and so you can barely hear them. And unfortunately, they might have some really interesting things to say, but it's really hard to hear. And so what tends to happen is you just switch off. And I think also it can come across like you aren't really sure of yourself, you aren't really sure of what you're saying. Perhaps you don't really think you've got anything interesting to say, because in a sense, when you're talking very quietly, you are making it very hard for people to hear you. So the audience doesn't really want to work that hard to listen to you. So you want to learn to vary your volume, and you want to have that conscious control over your volume. So if you're talking to one person, you can modify your volume as opposed to if you're talking to 100 people. But I will say, because the situation is going to determine the volume that you need. However, if you are talking to a large group of people, ideally you want your voice to be amplified. You never want to have to really push or strain your voice to be heard. So just bear that in mind when we do this exercise. So I'm going to give you a little exercise you can try at home right now. So I'd like you to, using the letters A to G, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I'd like you to say them starting as quietly as you can and going as loud as you can. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying when you start quietly, you're not whispering. It's got to be audible. And equally, when you're going as loud as you can, you're not shouting or screaming or yelling. So you are speaking, but you're speaking so you can be heard. So it will take a little bit of practice, because for many people, their volume is not something they think about, and it's almost very much on autopilot, the volume that you speak at. And so for a lot of people, if they do think they need to speak louder, what they tend to do is just push their voice and go almost to a yell. So this is an exercise that you can practice speaking louder. So it might sound something like this. So you're starting as quiet as possible. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so I'm not yelling, I'm not shouting, I'm not straining my voice in any way. And this is where you want to sort of start to practice. And then what you can do is actually reverse it. So you can start as loud as you can comfortably speak and then get as quiet as you can. The idea with this exercise is really to start to play around with the volume and actually see that you've got a lot more options open to you than just the one volume. And a little key when you are working on getting louder with your voice, it's less about pushing your voice and more about pronouncing and enunciating much more firmly and almost with more intensity. So if you are pushing your voice or straining or yelling, you're not approaching it in the right way. It's very much just a firmer kind of articulation or a more intense articulation. So you're not pushing the voice up. So play around with this, start to see how this feels, start to see where you feel you are on that spectrum of very quiet or very loud. And then hopefully this will start to open up more opportunities for you, more options for you to vary your volume. And you will need to practice this because it's not something you probably have done before, or not very often if you have done it. So I hope that's helped. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next video.